Also, I think, and also I'm going to explain that I'm going to say some historical figures, some names, who I fit either African American category or Black American category. Now, like I said, I'm going to explain myself, and I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Two figures I know in particular that I thought very hard about, and I feel that they have distinct differences. And of course, in this case, it would be more modern, recent time. And these two in particular I'm talking about is Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, MLK. I feel first Malcolm X is more of an African American, not only culturally but politically. And I also feel that Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whatever you want to call it, I call him MLK for this particular purpose of the video, because similar reasons that culturally and politically fits the bill. Now, before I explain myself on these two individuals, like I said, I feel that Black Americans are people that prefer, like myself, are more patriotic than so-called African Americans. I feel that Black Americans are more willing to contribute to being successful. Now, I'm not generalizing, more contributing to being successful than so-called African Americans. And I also feel that African Americans are more susceptible to learning about Africa much differently than Black Americans are. Like Black Americans, I think, more are into African culture, but at the same time they embrace the culture of their parents and parents' parents, and before that they embrace more of the immediate, regardless of the good and the bad in the past. They much more aware of between then and now, compared to African American is more concerned with back then. I think more people that consider African American. Now, this is not generalizing, this is just going off two figures. Now, before I go into that, let me go back to the reason I call Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Black and African American. Malcolm X more African American because, like I said, when he was in the Nation of Islam, or when he was coming up with the Nation of Islam, him and that group was more focused on, not necessarily Africa per se, but they had, similar to MLK, they had a mission to try to help their community, their particular community, help Black people at that particular time. And Malcolm X, like I said, with the Nation of Islam, had a particular idea which they felt was best. And with Martin Luther King, well, the reason I say he fits the bill more of a Black American, because, like I said, Martin Luther King wanted a broader base when it came to rights, when it came to civil rights. And with the SCLC and with the marches and everything he did was more successful and more relating to Black Americans. Like I said before, Black Americans are more willing to embrace being American compared to the African Americans. Also, Malcolm X was more rebellious to American, what was in American values, what was the patriotism of America, to more susceptible, more rejected to the accomplishments of, and also the Nation of Islam. What is the Nation of Islam was more rejected to what Black Americans had accomplished. You know, Tubman, Jackie Robinson at the time, or before that time, other accomplishments, little stuff like that. They were more rejected to that. They were more separatist, very separatist actually, and compared to Martin Luther King, which I believe was more on a broader base of integration, wanted more equal opportunities and stuff related to the civil rights movement. And also I feel that, not particular with the Nation of Islam, but other groups as well, had deterrent, had more, was more of a problem to those Martin Luther King and SCLC stuff, where the SCLC, where people like Martin Luther King, SCLC, and NAACP were trying to integrate people, Black Americans, with white Americans at the time, just politically saying, with the rest of society, trying to get them to be more productive and more invest into society, whereas Malcolm X and NOI was trying to reverse that process. Also, other people who I want to mention in that type of category would be, two more I'm going to add, is Booker T. Washington. It's more of a profile of more of a profile of a Black American, and also W.E.B. Du Bois, or I call him Webb Du Bois. as being more of an African American. Now, I admit I did not know much about W.E.B. Du Bois as much as I should, but I know enough that his contributions countered the values of what Booker T. Washington valued. Booker T. Washington wanted blacks to be more productive in society, similar to Martin Luther King, wanted to integrate society, wanted to be successful, wanted to be part, productive contributor to American society, compared to Fred DuVoe, who I personally think he just kind of gave up and just ran away, like, not trying to be, insulting, but to be honest with you, I think he just ran away like a punk. That's why he probably lived in Ghana, but another two more individuals, Marcus Garvey and Frederick Douglass. Now, even though Frederick Douglass was much further in the past compared to Marcus Garvey per se, and of course Marcus Garvey being from Jamaica, I still believe Marcus Garvey fits the African American profile, and Frederick Douglass fit in the Black American profile. Marcus Garvey was more, like I said, to the left. He was more of a separatist, similar to Malcolm X and W.E.B. Du Bois, and really wanted nothing to do with American society. Was willing, but at the same time was willing to help black people. But like I said, didn't have the same mindset compared to MLK or Douglass or Martin Luther King. Frederick Douglass was, like I said, an abolitionist coming up during slavery times and much more before that, and was more progressive in the notes that being black people as being equal in society, more like I was saying before, trying to get more black people, one, trying to get free so that they can be equal with white people during the time of society. It's like, look, we're not animals, we can think, we can write, we can do this, we can do that just as good, if not better, than y'all guys. And like I said, he had to go through so much crap, and I'm pretty sure Garvey had to go through so much crap. But the problem I have with Garvey, and why the reason I put Garvey in African American category, because that's why I feel that his contributions and influential mindset has come where reason why we got, I think, is a difference between African American and Black American. But to conclude, like I said, I just wanted to throw some few names and stuff and what I thought about the situation, not because of those individuals, but why I feel there's a difference between Black Americans and African Americans. African Americans, there are some African Americans, like I said, more receptive. They really, when they call it American, they're not really into the American way, the American dream or whatever. I don't think. They're more into the Afrocentric, they're trying to find, they're more into the African type of thing, more into, they reject more compared to the compared to Black Americans, which are the opposite, were more value. It's an American dream, they want to contribute to the economy, they're more trying to be successful in America, and like I said, African Americans, that's the ones that really claim to be African American, are not. So they try to reject the system, they try to negate the system, they try to negate Black Americans that want to be successful in America, that know that we can succeed in America despite color lines, despite discrimination, despite the good and the bad of American history. But like I said, drop a comment, holler back. Alright.